Between 1800 and 1850, treaties played a critical role in shaping relationships between Indigenous nations and the British Crown. Treaties were agreements that outlined land use, trade, and responsibilities, but their meanings were often interpreted differently by each side. For Indigenous nations, treaties were about shared land and mutual agreements, while the British often viewed them as land surrenders, taking away many Indigenous lands and rights as a result. One important agreement was the Selkirk Treaty of 1817. The Earl of Selkirk negotiated with local Anishinaabe and Cree leaders to secure land for Scottish settlers in what is now Manitoba. While Indigenous leaders agreed to share the land, the British treated the agreement as a permanent land transfer, leading to future tensions. Another key treaty was the Huron Tract Treaty of 1827. This agreement saw large areas of southwestern Ontario ceded to the British Crown, significantly affecting the Huron-Wendat and other Indigenous groups. These treaties often failed to promote lasting benefits for Indigenous communities, as the promised support was rarely given by the British Crown. The Saugeen Treaty of 1836 involved the Ojibwe people of the Bruce Peninsula, who were pressured into giving their lands in exchange for promises of protection and assistance. However, much of what was promised did not materialize, leading to displacement and loss of traditional territory. The Mississaugas of New Credit land cession agreements affected the Mississauga people, who gradually lost their lands around the Toronto region due to a series of treaties. In many cases, the full terms of these agreements were not honored, contributing to long-term challenges for Indigenous communities. Two major treaties in 1850, the Robinson Superior and Robinson Huron Treaties, were significant in shaping relations between the British and Indigenous nations in what is now Northern Ontario. These agreements set a model for later treaties by including annuities, reserves, and hunting and fishing rights. However, many Indigenous leaders later argued that the treaties did not fully reflect their understanding of the agreements. Wampum belts were often exchanged alongside treaties as a way to record the agreements. Unlike written documents, these belts symbolized trust and mutual respect. Indigenous nations viewed them as sacred, representing living agreements meant to be revisited and honored over time. The impact of these treaties was profound. Indigenous nations lost access to much of their traditional lands, and many of the promises made in these agreements were not fully kept. These treaties continue to have lasting effects, influencing modern land claims and legal disputes in Canada today.